Hey everybody, Mrs. Bianchi. We're looking at number 8, which can be a little intimidating just because of the user unfriendly numbers that are in the problem. So I'm going to help you with it. For every 140 feet that Kelly rides on her bicycle, the wheels turn 20 times. About how many times do the wheels turn in 5 miles? And they do give us the information of 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. So if we take what they give us and turn it into a ratio, that might be a strategy that might work for some of you. So this number was feet. So I'm going to put that down here. And we know that it's 1 mile for every 5,280 feet. So then you would say to yourself, well, where do I put this number, 140? Well, that was in feet. So that means I would put it not here because that's talking about miles, but down here because it's talking about feet. And we would be solving for miles. So I'll put a variable m there. Now, another thing to consider, I don't know if anybody wants to use this approach, but I'm just going to show you. So we could write this first little piece of information as a ratio, and we could simplify it. And we might consider using that somehow in the problem solving process. So if it's 140 feet for every 20 wheel turns, then you could consider simplifying that. If we divide by 20, we get 1. And if we divide by 20, we get 7. So that's a 7-to-1 ratio. It's a 7-to-1 ratio of feet to wheel turns. Now, if that looks more user-friendly and you want to use that in your computations, that might work. But let's go back to this method. Now, if we look at the actual question, because that's important to look at the question mark, here's the question mark, and really try to understand what they're asking. It says, about how many times do the wheels turn in 5 miles? So the units that they're talking about are wheel turns and miles. So what I've done here is I've set up miles and wheel turns, and we're talking about 5 miles, and they want to know how many wheel turns in 5 miles. So that means we need to put a number here and we need to put a number here, right, in order to solve for W. So we need a number of miles, which we can find that by finishing up this. And we need a number of wheel turns. So let's start with the number that we would put here. Now, what I hate about this question, folks, is the fact that the numbers are really ugly. So I apologize for that. And I don't know who wrote this question, but it's a little bit insane. All right, so at any rate, let's just press on with using cross products to solve for m. So if we went ahead and did this cross product, 1 times 140, that would equal 140. And the other cross product going this way would be 5,280 multiplied with m. And if we were to solve this, the opposite of multiplying a variable with this number would be to divide by this number. So we would do that on both sides of the equation. Both sides of the equation. All right, and then what would happen on the right side? Well, this would simplify and equal 1, and 1 times m would equal m. Now what we're going to do is we're going to simplify. This is a fraction. So if we were to just ignore everything else and just focus on how do I simplify this fraction right here that's in the yellow box, we can start by dividing by 10. So if I divide this by 10 and divide this by 10, that's the same as getting rid of those zeros. And we could simplify it more by dividing by 2. So we can do 14 divided by 2 in our heads. 14 divided by 2 would be 7. And then 528 divided by 2 might not be mental math. So I'm going to speed things up by using the calculator, but you probably should show the algorithm for this on your paper. So we're taking 528 and we're dividing it by 2, and we get 264. All right, so let's put the calculator away. So if we clean this up, this equaled 264. So it's 7 over 264. And again, remember this stood for miles, so I'm just going to write that down so we don't get confused. So now I can take this number and I can put it here. Now, one of the things that I just want to throw out there is they do give you the word about. See how it says up here, about how many times? So some people at this point, they might turn this into something that's just a little more user-friendly that would be close to this fraction, but I'm going to stick with the exact number for now, and then if we have time, we can kind of circle back to some shortcuts that you might be able to apply when you do get that word about. But at any rate, where would we put the number 20? because remember the thing is turning 20 times. 20 times. Well, would we put that here because we have 20 wheel turns? So if you think about it, this number right here in simplest form was equal to 264ths of a mile. So I'm just going to write that here just so we can look at it. 264ths of a mile. And this, right, the 20 wheel turns, see, that's here. So it's basically just taking this, turning into miles, and writing that as a ratio. And see, here it is, right here. Now, again, they want to know how many wheel turns in 5 miles. That's what the question is asking. So we could go ahead with our cross products. So this cross product, oh, darn it, hate that when that happens. How do I get rid of, oh, there we go. All right. I don't know why that comes up, but it does. All right, so this times this, the factors involved are 5 times 20, which it's my hope that you have that basic fact in your head that would be equal to 100. And if we look at the other cross product going this way, that involves these two factors. So that would involve the 7 264ths times W. So I'm just going to write it again down here. 7 264ths times W. All right, now this is where I hate this problem because it's ugly, and I'm glad it does say about, but I still want to show you how to do it precisely. Now, when you have an equation like this, right, here's the variable. It's being multiplied with this number to get this number. So you would say to yourself, what's the opposite of multiplying a variable with this? And it would be to divide by this number. And what is the same as dividing by 7 264ths? It's to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to take the reciprocal of this value, and I'm going to write it on both sides of the equation. So don't be intimidated by the ugly numbers. We're just going to press on. I don't know who wrote this question, but it's a bit ridiculous, but we're just going to carry on anyway. All right, so now if we were to simplify, we would get 1. And if we simplify here, let's use a different color, maybe green. This divided by 264 would be 1, and this divided by 264 would be 1. Now, you don't even have to go through the process of showing all that. You're supposed to know that anytime you multiply a value with its reciprocal, it equals 1. And what are we left with? We're left with the W. So just write the W down. All right, now let's stick a 1 underneath this because some people like that better. Now, if I do this number times this number, that's supposed to be mental math, you just write this red number. And then since we're multiplying that by 100, you just need to add the 2 zeros. And then the denominator, we're dividing that number by 7. Taking that number and dividing it by 7. All right, now if you had to do the algorithm, you would set it up like this. Now, to save you the time and effort, because I know that some of you would take you a long time to do this algorithm, we're going to use the calculator, but 7 would not go into that, and it would go into this 3 times, but we're not going to finish it this way because some of you that would take a while. I mean, you should be able to do that, but let's talk about it on the calculator. So if we're going to do this on the calculator, we would take this number 26400 and divide it by 7, and look at what we get. All right, we get this number. Now I'm going to move the calculator up, and let's see if I can scroll up to the answer choices. And what I want you to do is look at the answer choices and ask yourself, remember, this is the precise answer. It did say that you could round it because it does say about. So which answer choice matches up with what you see on the little calculator display? And by the way, would be the same thing you would get if you finished up this algorithm, because you would do 7 times 3 is 21, and you would kind of pick it up from there. All right, so hopefully you see what to do. I apologize that the numbers were big and ugly. And by the way, if anybody was able to use this ratio in your work, I'd love to see it, because some of you might find that to be a little bit more user-friendly to use in your computations, but many of you would. This just makes more sense because there's just 2 things to look at. All right, very good.